Okay, so let's get started just at least introducing ourselves, and then we will get started. Welcome everybody. I'm so glad you're here. My name is Taffy Miller. I'm the managing director at Homefront Farmers. We are thrilled to be able to be partnering with Wakeman Town Farm, not only on this webinar. Thank you so much, Christy and others, for allowing us to take up some of your airtime here on a Tuesday evening. Also, we are launching a partnership, which I will tell you all about at the end of the webinar. So please stay until the end of the actual presentation, and I will give you some pretty exciting details about a partnership with Wakeman that could get you guys growing quickly. We are very, very grateful for this partnership and all that Wakeman is doing. So without further ado, I am Taffy Miller. As I said, I'm with Homefront Farmers. I've been there for some time. I want to introduce our panelists. We've got Miranda Gould. If you could wave, Miranda, and for anyone who's seeing little faces, I don't know whether that's going to come up on your screen. Miranda has been at Homefront Farmers since it was founded 10 years ago. She is a wizard gardener. She is the director of client operations at Homefront Farmers. She's got a little person who's only 2 and another one on the way. And she's been gardening her whole adult life and is very, very passionate, and we love having her. So she's here with me to sort of back up and answer any other questions that we can. But our feature presenter tonight is Haley Goldblatt. You can wave, Haley. Haley is has been with Homefront for a few years. She is also a passionate organic grower. She has been in gardening all over the world, not just here in Connecticut, in Israel, in Greece. And she loves her gardens here in Connecticut. We love having her. She's a foodie and she loves to grow food for others. So we're really excited to hear from her. Right before we get started, I wanted to just get a sense of who's in the room. So can you give me the thumbs up if you can all hear me, first of all? Yes, thumbs up. Great. Welcome. Glad you're here. I'm going to do a quick poll to find out who's in the crowd. And please be honest, this is all anonymous, but I'm going to launch the first question. You're going to see it and give me a thumbs up if you see this on your screen. Yes? You see okay, if you could answer that first question. Rate your skill level experience with vegetable gardening. If you could all just punch in your answer. You too, Miranda and Haley. We've got about half people have answered so far. A few more. 3 people haven't answered, but that's okay. Give it 1 more minute. Okay. So let's see. I'm going to share these results with you. Okay, your skill, as you can see, we've got about 25% of the group is a total beginner. Okay. We've got about half who've done a little gardening, but had some wins, not a lot of success. That's okay. We're here to help. And then a few others. And there's a couple who are experts. So that's nice to see. Okay, let's do one more and see what we come up with. This is just a test to make sure you're really telling the truth. Go ahead and answer that question. Oh my God, everybody knows what escape is. What is escape? Anyone know what escape is? All right, ready? Here we go. I really, really want to respect the people who said, I don't have a clue. I love that. Yes, escape is a part of a garlic plant, and Haley's going to tell you more about that a little bit later. Okay. Last one, and then we'll jump in. And this is an important one. Away you go. What intimidates or concerns you most about vegetable gardening? Pick one, the most important concern to you. Okay, oh, we're almost there. A few more people voting. Don't you love these polls? Aren't they fun? Yeah, they're good, right?
They're so fun.
Yeah. Yeah, as expected, right, Haley? Animal pressure is a huge, huge concern for people, and worrying about having the skills. And sometimes those are combined. You know, I don't have the skills to keep the animals out of my garden. So great. I'm going to show you those results there. There you go. Animal pests is the biggest worry that most people have. And then the skills is the next worry. Okay, so we'll stop that. We'll stop there. And Haley, over to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Taffy. It was really cool to see everybody's answers. So tonight we're going to talk a little bit about Homefront Farmers and a guide to backyard homesteading. This is a bit about what we're going to be talking about. We're going to cover a lot of material. So if you have any questions at all, feel free to use the raise your hand option in the chat or throw a quick question in the chat, and Taffy will point that out and we'll answer your questions as follows. We'll talk a little bit about who we are and all the different things that we offer, because we offer a lot of different things. We'll show you some photos of our gardens, and then we'll get into the weeds of what we can do to help you and the knowledge and the practices that we use in our gardens that you can take home and use in your own gardens in your backyard. So do you love sustainable living? Of course you do. You're here and you want to learn more about it. And we offer lots of different aspects that you might be interested that involve sustainable living. We offer backyard beekeeping, fruit and berry enclosures, artisanal mushroom production on logs right outside your door, and local maple syrup production. We offer all of these things at our company and at our business, but who are we? We are a group of passionate environmental stewards who are dedicated to bringing sustainable living to the modern family home. We were started by our fearless leader, John, 10 years ago. He actually started this company in his backyard in his garage and has grown it consecutively over the years to be this big operation. We have over 200 clients and we grow lots and lots of food for lots and lots of people. We have a 30 by 96 greenhouse where we grow all of our seedlings, and we do it with a smile on our face. We, each and every single person that works at Homefront is incredibly passionate about what they do. You can't do this job and you can't work in gardening and in the world of agriculture if you don't really love it. And that's one of the most important aspects of what we do, is living every single day just in like pure joy at the wonders of nature. Like from little seedlings coming out of the ground to harvesting the fruits of our labor, like gardening truly could not bring us more joy. And hopefully it will for you too. It's such an empowering thing to be able to feed your family and your community, your neighbors, and yourself. It can truly give you confidence and make you feel empowered in lots of different ways, whether that be a scientific way, in a physical way, or in a delicious way. It's there are so many different aspects to gardening that are so wonderful for kids, for adults, for teenagers, and we love it so much.
And that was Miranda's little guy, by the way, in the last slide, just so you know.
This is Isaac, her little last summer, yeah. And he could not look happier at that baby carrot. Now that's a lot of info about us. Let's talk about you and let's show you some photos of our gardens. So we have really big gardens where we grow lots of different things. And we have gardens in weird places with lots of shade and on slopes. And we have really small gardens. We have gardens that grow lots of flowers. We have gardens that grow lots of tomatoes. And the most important thing is that you can really grow a garden anywhere. There's lots of common misconceptions about what you need to grow food. And you don't really need a giant plot of land to grow a lot of food for your family. You can have a small little garden and produce a lot of food in there. But I think the biggest thing that people worry about, as you saw in the poll, when growing food is pressure from pests and pressure from animals. And that's the first thing that I want to talk to you guys about. So something that's really simple, but the most important part of growing food is having a protective barrier between your garden and outside animals. And obviously, everyone's going to want to get in there. Everybody wants a piece of the pie. But I think the most important thing is to have a fence, because that's going to prevent deer, that's going to prevent rabbits from coming in and eating all of your vegetables. And it's really important. And it's something as simple as putting up a couple T-posts and some fencing. And it doesn't have to be like a big wire production. It can be something small and simple. Something that we do in our gardens that is really easy to do on your own at home is planting deer-resistant plants around your garden. Now, this can be as simple as a pot right outside the front door to your garden with some onion chives or some normal chives, some lavender, some herbs. Deer really don't like woody herbs, and they're not a fan of anything garlicky or oniony. So if you want to plant garlic or onions outside your garden, it'll kind of be a signal to your neighborhood, like, hey guys, there's some good stuff in here and you don't want it. And they genuinely will not like anything that smells or tastes like garlic or onions. We also use sonic spikes, which is a really simple, really easy, affordable way to keep voles and moles out of your garden. And this is really important, especially if you're growing root crops like potatoes and carrots and things like that. Voles and moles like to dig underground, and sonic spikes let out a sonic noise, kind of similar to a dog whistle, that will signal to chipmunks and moles and voles, get out of here, because they have really sensitive ears and they won't want to be around that. I really don't like the sound of sonic spikes. So when I go into my gardens, I just turn them off real quick and I walk around my garden and I spend time in there, and then I turn it back on when I leave. So it's not something that you need to listen to all the time. You can adjust it to your lifestyle, and if you want to be outside playing with your kids and don't want to hear the noise, you can just turn it off. They're really simple. You can find them on Amazon. They're really easy to get. Something that's a little less easy, but is really important and still pretty relatively simple, but not as easy as sticking a spike in the ground, is row cover. It's a thin material, kind of like cotton or cloth, and it helps protect young, vulnerable seedlings from bugs that are going to lay eggs on them when they're young. Now, your plants are probably the most vulnerable when they're in their baby stage, when they're in a couple weeks old, and when they're yay big. And it makes them tastier, obviously, and they're not as strong. They haven't developed a strong root system. So they're going to be more vulnerable to pest pressure, to disease, and to the elements of the weather. So we use row cover to protect them in a temperature-wise. It'll raise the temperature underneath a degree or two, which will help with frost and will really protect anything from early egg laying. Now, all of these are kind of aspects of what we call in the agriculture world integrated pest management, which sounds intimidating, but it's really just a fancy way of saying spend time in your garden. The most efficient way to mitigate pest pressure and to mitigate pressure from bugs and animals is to be out there. Once animals notice that you're out there, they're less likely to be out there, and you're also more likely to know what's going on in there, whether that be monitoring your garden every day or every other day or once a week. Just spending some time in your garden is going to be so, so valuable for you. If you plant a whole garden and then leave it alone and don't go in there for 2 weeks and come back and find a lot of damage, you're going to be shocked and you're going to be a little upset, because that's a lot of time, it's a lot of money, and it's a lot of effort that gets wasted and feeds someone else. So it's really important to keep an eye on everything in there and make sure you know what's going on. It doesn't have to be every day, but caring for your plants means being there for them. So this has a lot to do with identifying good and bad bugs. There's all types of bugs. They're not all bad. And we really want to keep a good mixture of both. You want to see ladybugs, maybe a praying mantis or two. Those are kind of rare, but they're awesome. And you want to have honeybees. And these are really important for lots of different reasons that we'll get into later in the PowerPoint. But having good bugs in your garden is a main aspect of keeping away the bad bugs, because ladybugs will eat a lot of the bugs that are going to try to eat your vegetables. Ladybugs don't want to nibble on broccoli or kale. They want to eat the bad, yucky bugs that we don't want. So we want ladybugs. And we use organic spray if necessary. It's not our first go-to, but it's an option for you if you're interested and if you're facing some really harsh pest pressure. And if you have any questions on organic sprays or options, we'd be happy to help you with that. And row covers are great for early stages of egg laying. Now, this is a somewhat gross picture, but it's a really great example of the damage that can happen if you're not fully aware of what's going on in your garden. This is an adult moth, an egg, and some larvae of something that we suffer from in the Northeast called the squash vine borer. Now, you can notice the damage by simply noticing if your squash are wilting. So this is any type of squash that this bug will attack. They'll attack butternut squash, they'll attack your summer zucchini squash, your normal yellow summer squash. Any type of squash that you grow, the squash vine borer is going to want to get in there. And you can tell that they're causing damage on the inside. You won't see visible bite marks, but you'll see your plant start to wilt and look really sad. And maybe you'll think, wow, I need to water this plant more, because wilting is a sign of dehydrated plants. But if that plant's getting enough water and you know that, then it's most likely a squash vine borer problem. And there's a couple different ways we can go to help with this. The main thing that I'll suggest is to have a succession plant ready to go in July. And we're going to talk a lot more about succession plants, but having a plant ready to go in July will give you squash for the rest of the season. And the bugs aren't going to lay their eggs in July. They only lay their eggs in the early spring. So you're going to be safe. Now, I have a question for all of you. How long do you think the growing season is in the Northeast? And you can answer it on your computers. I'm very interested to see what your answers are.
Okay, we've got about half of answers so far.
It's a tricky one.
How many months long is the growing season in Connecticut? Are you ready to see the results?
Yes.
Interesting.
Okay. Okay, it's pretty spread out. 22% thought it was 5 months, and another 22% thought it was 8 months. So I consider our growing season, and we do at Homefront Farmers, we consider it 7 months. This is because we start our growing season in early April, and we go all the way until October. And that's a full 7 months that we get to plant and harvest from our crops. And this has a lot to do with succession planting and pest management, which is what we've been talking about all night. We use succession planting to get the most out of our growing season, which means we plant cool weather crops in the spring and in the fall, and heat-loving crops in the summer. So there's a
And this is something you can do too. I mean, this is how you should think about your gardens, is that there's 3 growing seasons: cool, hot, and cool. Go right ahead, Haley. I just want to make sure you think of it, even in terms of, it's not a fancy garden like this, it's a tiny little plot, 3 growing seasons over a very long growing.
So this is actually the garden design for Wakeman Town Farms garden that we built for them there. And we use lots of different aspects of succession planting and crop planting that hopefully you can take a little knowledge from and do in your own garden at home. Something that you might not be aware of is that spinach loves the cold weather. There's a common misconception that spinach is a summer crop, and it's really not. You want to plant things like spinach and arugula in the spring and in the fall. And things like sugar snap peas. Sugar snap peas have a pretty short window, so we plant those in April. We're able to get 2 full harvests of carrots by planting carrots in early April, and then we get a full harvest in July. And then you can plant another crop of carrots in July and have them to harvest in the fall. And what you might really love about carrots that you might not be aware of is they get sweeter after a frost. So if you plant your carrots in July and you wait until December to harvest them, you're going to have delicious sweet carrots that you can have at Christmas dinner. And they're going to be really amazing and way better than carrots that you harvest early.
I actually harvested my parsnips only a couple of weeks ago from last spring or last fall, and they were divine. Yeah.
That is awesome. So there's a lot going on in this design, and hopefully we can break it down a little bit to help you understand some aspects of it. So we talked a little bit about the succession planting arugula in the spring, planting Cascadia sugar snap peas in the spring, and planting spinach in the spring. So what happens in June when it starts to warm up, these crops lose their flavor, they lose their activity, and they want to go dormant. So we pull them out and we plant something that loves the heat. And this is a really great practice you can do at home with beans and arugula. and it has to do with your soil. So arugula loves the cool weather, right? But it's a nitrogen dependent crop, so it needs a lot of nitrogen. So when you plant beans after your arugula, you're releasing nitrogen back into the soil so that when you're ready for your fall crop of arugula, there's going to be nitrogen ready in the soil for it, and it's going to grow big and beautiful and green and be really, really healthy. Something a lot of people don't realize is that when you plant the same thing in the same spot over and over, it's going to deplete the nutrients in the soil, and it's going to make it more likely that diseases from that year are going to spread year to year. So every year we rotate our crops, which is something, if you have a garden at home, you might want to consider doing. Not planting the same crop in the same spot year after year is going to really help you mitigate disease and help you get stronger plants and healthier soil year after year. Something we also do that you can do at home is planting plant families in the same spot. So as you can see in the bottom right corner, zucchini and cucumbers are in the same plant family and they're friends. So planting things like zucchini, squashes, cucumbers all in the same place, they're going to thrive together. Just like the tomatoes and the basil, they have a conversation in the soil together. Tomatoes and basil aren't just planted together because of caprese. They actually have a conversation and they tell each other to grow bigger and stronger and more flavorful. So when you grow basil and tomatoes together, they actually do that. Another thing you can notice about this design is that there's a ton of flowers. And it's not just to look pretty. Flowers attract beneficial pollinators, which we were talking a little bit about earlier in our pest section, but beneficial pollinators are so important to the health of your garden for so many different reasons. The first reason is that they're going to pollinate all your tomatoes, all your peppers, all your cucumbers. Without those honeybees to pollinate your fruiting crops, your solanaceous crops, and your cucurbits, you're not going to have a lot of production. Your plants aren't going to know to continue to produce fruit, and you're going to have a lot of leafy greens and a lot less fruit. So having flowers to attract beneficial pollinators is so important for this reason.
Not to mention it's also gorgeous in your garden. So yeah.
It's gorgeous. Another reason we really want lots of flowers is to attract beneficial insects. So when you have attracting beneficial insects, you have lots of ladybugs in your garden. And then those ladybugs are going to eat the aphids that are going to want to attack your kale, and you're going to have a full living ecosystem in your backyard. This is something we love about gardening, is you literally create a home for so many different aspects of life, and you create your own ecosystem. And it's really cool, and it's exciting, and you're going to love seeing all of the new things that pop up in your garden. Whoops. So a part of this living ecosystem that we have.
I'm just giving you a time check. It's 7:27, Haley. So we'll keep going, and we want to make time for questions. So carry on. You're doing great.
Thanks. Okay. This is a bit of the less interesting portion of our PowerPoint. So if you tap out, go for it. I'll run through it real quick. Part of the living ecosystem that we were talking about, like a little bit with the arugula and the beans, is your healthy soil. Now, 1 tablespoon of healthy soil has over 1 billion different types of bacteria, which might not sound like a lot, but all of those bacteria have a job and they have a role, and they go to work every single day, just like we do. And they're food for earthworms, and they're food for nematodes, and they're food for all of the life that's going on in your soil. And all of the life in your soil is going to feed your plants and therefore feed you. So we really want to make sure we take care of our soil. A way you can do this at home that's really easy is having mulch in your garden. Mulch is going to decrease soil erosion. It's going to increase water retention, so you're not going to have to water your garden as much. It's going to nourish all of the biology in your soil, and it's going to make it a lot easier for you weed-wise. Like when you have mulch in your garden, you do not have to weed as often, which is one of the most intimidating and annoying aspects of gardening, is weeding. So you want to have mulch in your garden. It also regulates the soil temperature. Another really easy thing you can do at home, if you don't do it already, is compost at home. Now, I'm actually doing a composting workshop at my yoga studio in Milford. It's virtual, so if you want to tap in online, shoot me your information, send me your email, and I can email you the Zoom link for late April.
Yeah, if you want to do that, just put yoga and then your name and email in the chat, and you can join that.
And you can join me for a whole night of composting. It'll be really exciting. But for now, I just want to tell you a couple reasons why you might want to add compost in your garden. All of that food we were talking about, that's food for earthworms and food for the biology in your soil, that's what compost is. It's going to feed your plants, and you're going to have a lot less of a need and a lot less of a desire for organic fertilizers, because that's literally what compost is. It's adding so much nutrients back into your soil. You're going to have less food waste because you're putting your food waste from your kitchen into your garden, and you're creating a beautiful cycle of an ecosystem. And it's really incredibly beautiful. Like, the food that you eat from your garden is then going to go back into your garden and nourish your plants, and it's a living cycle. Compost also retains water. So if one of your concerns is wasting a lot of water in your garden, having mulch and having compost is going to help you with that. Another thing we do that you can do at home is trellis your tomatoes, and I highly, highly, highly recommend this. A 5-foot tall tomato cage is not going to do the trick if you want to get the most out of your tomatoes.
I wish we'd created a poll here, because how many people, raise your hand, have had tomatoes that look like a jumbled nest and that no tomato, right? Like, it's just about everybody.
Totally. I mean, you can grow your tomatoes however you want. If you want to grow them on the ground, if you want to grow them in a jumbled mess, like, that's totally fine. But if you want really large fruit and healthier plants and faster ripening, you're going to want to trellis your tomatoes. This is an example of one of our tomato trellises. It's about 6 or 7 feet tall. Right here. It's about 6 or 7 feet tall, and we can string our tomatoes using twine. You can tie a real simple slip knot, so you can untie it and retie it real quick. And you can use tomato clips to clip your tomatoes to your twine. Each week when your tomatoes grow taller, you just shorten your twine a little bit. And by the end of the summer, you're going to have a really long vine hanging over your trellis. And it's actually quite beautiful. And you're going to have so much fruit, you're not going to know what to do with it.
Also, remember, if you want more information on trellising tomatoes and tomatoes in general, Miranda did a wonderful series on a blog on our website. So you can visit homefrontfarmers.com for everything you ever wanted to know about tomato trellising.
It's really cool. I mean, Miranda has an amazing YouTube video also of trellising tomatoes, and it's really wonderful. We also do cucumber and pea trellises, which you can see in the back right over here. Similar to our tomato trellises, but for cucumbers and peas. And the last thing we're going to talk about tonight is the importance of harvesting. Not only is it the most exciting part of being in your garden, but it has to do with weekly maintenance. You need to harvest regularly in order for your plants to signal to themselves that they need to keep producing. So it's really important that you harvest at the ideal time, and that you harvest in a certain way depending on the plant that you're harvesting. And we can show you all how to do that. I'll give you an example of something that's really fun to harvest, if you haven't done it already, is garlic scapes. So
this is a scape for all those of you who didn't know what a scape was.
It's a beautiful little curly Q.
It is.
And you plant garlic in the fall, and you harvest your garlic bulbs in the summer. But there's this really sweet spot in the spring where your garlic will grow a little scape from the top. And you can tell that it's ready to harvest once it begins its little curly Q. I don't know if you can see it in this photo right here, illustrated by our very own Amy Yates. You just take a pair of scissors and you cut the garlic scape at the base, and then you can do whatever you want with it. You can cook it like garlic, you can make garlic scape pesto, which is what I really like to do. And it's a delicious treat and a really awesome way to get the most out of your garlic harvest. So we just want to let you know that we are available to you whenever. If you want to check out our blog, if you want to check out our YouTube channel, we design, build, and maintain gardens for people, and we have lots of other aspects to offer, like beekeeping and mushrooms and maple syrup and lots of good stuff. And we're also here for any information that you need. You can email info@homefrontfarmers.com. You can call us. You can hit us up on Facebook. We want to be available to you.
Thank you so much, Haley. This is awesome. I wanted to just point out also, that, and we're going to take questions now, and we're going to spend a nice long time. We're not in a hurry, so we're here to answer questions for you guys. But and you can put them in the chat right now, or you can unmute yourself. But before we do that, I just wanted to make sure that we talk about this partnership that we are doing with Wakeman. It's really very exciting, and it goes something like this. If you buy $200 or $500 gift card towards the startup maintenance that Homefront Farmers provides, so service in helping you maintain your garden, or $500 towards the building of a garden or a full season of maintenance, all of that $200 or $500 goes to Wakeman Town Farm with a charitable tax receipt, etc. It's a donation to them, but it also provides you with that towards the purchase of a garden or a maintenance program. So I hope that you will take a look at that. And Christy, if you could post the link up on the chat. I did that also earlier, but we can give you that link, and it really is worthwhile. Any way we can support Wakeman Town Farm, we want to do that. So let's go to questions. If you want to go, we can either take ourselves off of screen share, or we can go back to the Wakeman design. Maybe that's a good idea. And let's just see. We had a couple of questions here already. Let me go through here. First of all, you've got about 100 people coming to your yoga class, Haley, just wanting to know. Somebody asked if the sonic spikes bother pets. Miranda, do you want to address that for everyone real quick?
So I wrote a quick answer in the chat. Basically, you know, the sonic spikes emit a really high-pitched noise, but it's not super loud. And it's meant to be mostly vibrating underground. That's why you stick the spikes in the ground. So yes, you can hear them, and they can be annoying when you're in the garden, and therefore your pets may hear them as well, but it's not super, super loud. And you know, as long as you're like a few paces away from your garden, you probably won't even hear it. So, you know.
Great, it's minor. Yeah. Okay.
It's perfect. It's not like this loud, overwhelming.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, here's another question from Anne. Is it better to grow from seedlings or seeds? I'm new to this and thinking about tomatoes, zucchini, and herbs.
Yeah, I love that question. It is a great question. And the answer is, it depends on what you're going to grow. Some things like to be started very early in the greenhouse, like tomatoes. Our tomatoes get up potted twice. So we seed them first into 128s, which are really, really small sized plugs. Then we up pot them into 48s. So it's 48 pods to a tray, slightly bigger. And then after that, we up pot them to a pint size pot. Other things like radishes really mature quite fast, and they do not like to have their roots disturbed at all. So your only option is seeding them directly into the garden. When you do that, then you have to think about thinning.
Same with carrots?
Same with carrots. Yeah, so some really common crops that are great to direct seed into your garden are carrots, radishes, beans, peas. You can do zucchini, yellow squash, cucumbers, but you can also use transplants for those. If you do, when you transplant them, you don't want to mess with the roots. You just want to gently take it out of the pot, put it in the hole, don't jumble up the roots and disturb them that much, because they don't like that.
All right. Birds ate my tomatoes, says Barbara. How do I prevent this? I don't have a roof on my garden. Oh, Barbara, join the club.
Haley,
Barbara, do you want to unmute Barbara and tell us a little bit about that?
Yes. Hang on if you can.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Unmute. Okay. We have fencing on the sides, and they even came through the fencing on the sides as well as from the top. And I had my tomato plants trellising up the side. and beautiful tomatoes. And as soon as they turned red, that's when the birds came in and attacked. So
Are you sure it was birds?
I was just
or
gonna
could
say
it
that.
have been
I think it may be a combination of birds and squirrels.
Yeah.
Birds and squirrels, probably. But I've seen birds eating them too. What do you suggest?
We've been dealing with an insane amount of pest pressure, especially in the last year, from squirrels, chipmunks, birds, the whole gambit. And what we decided to do this year was build like a portable but pretty permanent tomato enclosure. It's there's some wire fencing on the inside, and it's held up by a bunch of 2x4s and like a pretty design. We built ours in 2 feet by 4 foot, so you can fit like 4 tomatoes in the 4-foot space. And you can either build this at home, you can contact us for more information on how to do it. It can be pretty in depth, but fully enclosing your tomatoes is truly the only way to secure them, because everybody's got to eat, right? Everybody lives outside. Everybody wants a piece of the pie, unfortunately. And it sucks that it has to be at the will of your hard work and your labor, but
The expense.
And I will also add, Barbara, that you can sling netting over the top of the tomatoes, but they will get in, whether it's just by like rummaging around the perimeter that is not completely secured, or chewing through the soft plastic. So anytime you can choose between like hardware, we recommend hardware cloth. So it's like a 1/2 inch opening of metal that they can't chew through, because they will chew through 80% of the time. They'll chew.
How do you put that on, the hardware cloth, without injuring the
We
plants?
basically build a box with wood, and then we, attach the hardware cloth to the wood.
Okay.
Thanks.
That's a start. And Barbara,
Yeah.
you can absolutely, contact us if you're interested in a tomato enclosure, or at least we can talk you through a little bit more too. Okay.
Thank you.
And
Thank
you
you.
know what? I'm also actually going to add in that a lot of people have this issue, but people have very varying degrees of destruction with this issue, and you really want to make sure that if you have the option to locate your garden away from bushes, away from stone walls, like any habitat that the squirrels and the chipmunks are hanging out, and they look over into your garden and they're like, oh my God, it's a buffet, easy access. The more you can locate your garden out in the middle of a field or like an open space, the better, because there are, hawks around and things like that, predators that will help keep them in check.
Thank you.
But I realize that's not always an option for.
Yeah, it's not.
Thank you, Barbara.
Thank you.
Okay. Mary Ellen's asking, for this year, I don't have, oh no, sorry. Yeah, okay, let's go to that one. For this year, I don't have compost, and after testing my soil, I know that my soil is very depleted. What's the fastest, best way to amend the soil if I don't have compost? Is cow manure good? And if so, what brand is best? Feel free to unmute yourself, Mary Ellen, and Miranda, Haley.
I would say if you have access to buy cow manure, or unless like you are raising cows yourselves and have easy cow manure, I wouldn't personally apply cow manure straight to my garden. If you have cow manure, you can probably access compost. You can make it with the cow manure, or you can buy compost at a local nursery. It's pretty affordable and it's pretty easy to access. And if your soil is depleted, I would definitely put mulch on it 100%.
What kind of mulch would you use?
You
Like
can
a
use straw,
peat?
you can use red bark, you can use peat. Peat's really good for your soil.
Will that like increase the nutrients in it though, like the nitrogen and the potash? And I don't know, it seems to be depleted of almost everything. And I did use peat last year, but I guess every year I'd have to repeat that, right?
I would really incorporate some finished compost, because even though you can put mulch on top of things, and slowly over time that mulch will break down and incorporate into the soil and become a source of compost, it takes quite a while. So if you want like a fast fix to the nutrient depletion in your garden. You want to add, you know, depending on how much you need and how much your soil test says, up to 3 inches of compost, and then incorporate it into that soil, turn it into the soil. And then after you plant, you can mulch over the top of that, and it'll help for long-term upkeep.
So like a mushroom compost as opposed to a cow compost, or are they both the same?
If you mean the mushroom compost that's at Lowe's, that's in like a
Yeah.
tan bag, I wouldn't buy that. It's like $3-4, and it might do something for a little bit, but it's not the nutrient dense, rich compost. I would go to a local nursery. Gilberti's in Westport probably has some nice they have good lobster compost, Lobster Maine compost. It's a little
Maine is the brand of that. Yep.
And I also want to mention that that Wakeman Town Farm is offering free compost this year, starting on Earth Day. It will be outside the fence near the entrance to the farm. So I just
do that.
Yeah.
Like just bring your own bag, kind of scoop it up type of deal?
Christy, do you want to jump in? Maybe she will, maybe she won't. Okay, so we will get some details on that to you. But I just read that they will be offering free compost. Also, I hear from other people that are online on the chat here, you can buy finished compost at Agway, any good farm store. There's a couple of questions relating to this, and that is, can you please discuss hot and cold mulch and the pH in the level of the soil? And we'll do that quickly because then we're going to move on to another topic.
So I'll touch upon pH in soil. You really want your pH to be between 6 and 7, and that is an incredibly broad statement because each micro point, like 6.1, 6.2, each little point value is a huge difference on the pH scale. It's really significant. But if your pH is less than 6 or over 7, then you probably have a bit of a problem. So you really want it within that range.
Right.
And
if you want to get like narrow that down a little bit more, between 6.5 and 6.8 is going to be like kind of the most ideal. And I'm just going to say that our natural soil in Connecticut is a neutral pH, which is ideal for veggie gardens. So you really don't have to worry about it that much. You'll find a lot of gardening literature that is based in like northern New England, where they have more acidic soil, where blueberries and potatoes are growing. In Massachusetts and Maine, they'll say, you know, every year you need to lime your soil to get that pH back up. That does not apply to us because we have naturally neutral soil. So yay.
And I did just hear from Wakeman that the compost is bagged and organic at Wakeman. So you can just go and pick it up on Earth Day. Let me shift gears for a second here. And that is, Kirsten asks, I'd like to grow a whole bed of lettuce this year. Advice on how to space, particularly vulnerabilities, how best to protect, particularly the types, anything you can say about lettuce?
Well, okay, so first of all, lettuce in general is a cool weather crop. It likes the cool weather of spring to be planted around now, and also fall. However, there are some heat tolerant varieties. One of the most heat tolerant varieties that we grow is a summer crisp called Nevada, but there are many different kinds of summer crisp that are usually heat tolerant. And if you go online to your, seed supplier like Fedco, High Mowing, Johnny's, whatever, they will tell you on there which ones are heat tolerant and which one, if it doesn't say, then it means it's not. So getting full-size heads in the summertime with lettuce can be quite a challenge. So you definitely want to go for those heat tolerant varieties.
Okay.
I'd say as far as spacing, if you want head lettuce, you want to go about 8 inches apart. But if you're doing baby lettuce, you can direct seed that and you can plant it quite close together and do like give it a little haircut, cut and come again type thing. So it depends, what you want, if you want the head or if you want baby leaf.
Okay, thanks. What's the timeline on lettuce, like from planting the seeds to harvesting ahead? And actually, yeah, what's the best way to harvest it too? Like, you don't want to remove the whole head or.
Usually with planting, like right now, we have lettuce just starting to come out of our greenhouse. So we do grow transplants in the greenhouse first. Then we transplant them outside, and usually they're really coming in force in late May and early June. After early June, they tend to flower where the head will elongate. The leaves get bitter and it stops producing the actual leaves.
Mhm.
And then you just pull it out and replant a heat tolerant variety.
Okay.
So that's kind of your time frame, I guess, from April through early June. As far as harvesting it, if you want to harvest a head of lettuce, you can do a couple different things. You can pinch off the outer leaves first and leave the inside of it to keep growing. If you want it to like stay in the ground and produce as much as possible for you. Or you can just lop off the whole thing at the soil line and take the whole head, and it's kind of one and done.
Okay.
And then with the baby leaf, you give it a little haircut, probably about an inch or an inch and a half above the soil line. So above the crown where, you know, the leaves are coming out, because you want it to grow back a couple times. So you don't want to cut off anything below the crown of the plant.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome, Kirsten. Anyone else have any questions? I didn't see any more in the chat, but now we've stopped sharing and you're free to unmute yourself and chat away. Anything else?
Any advice on groundhogs? We have one.
Yeah.
You can hire companies to remove them, and that would not be us.
Okay.
22 usually works.
Someone here, I guess Mary Ellen asked, do you recommend square foot gardening?
Yeah, so just a disclaimer, I am not like super familiar with square foot gardening, but I think it can be a good way to get started, and a lot of crops do get planted, you know, 1 per foot. So if you want to, you know, start really small scale with a bed that's like 3 by 3 feet, and, you know, measure things out and just be like super organized, if you're that type of gardener, then I'd say go for it. But I don't think it's completely needed. So.
Okay, great. Anything else? Oh, I am brand new to gardening, city transplant. Welcome to the country. What do I need to know about watering? How much is enough, too much? Feel free to unmute yourself, Andrew.
Yeah, sorry. Hi.
Okay.
So
Watering.
you may have addressed this at the beginning. I was a little bit late, so I apologize. We moved into a house that has a pre-existing garden, and it actually has irrigation like lines in it. I've never used them. I don't know anything about how to use them or anything like that. So just trying to figure out. I don't want overwatering or not watering enough to be my issue. I'll struggle with the pests and the birds and everything else like everyone else if I can.
Hey, John, do you want to take that one? We've got John, the founder of Homefront here, just appeared. Hi, John.
Hey, I had my video off for a while. Yeah, and Haley and Miranda can jump in too. But what we usually say is, you know, just start with regular watering like every day, because consistency of water is as important as the right overall amount. So, you know, start with say half an hour every day. But really the best way to know is to feel the soil. So if you grab a handful of soil, it should, and squeeze it in your fist, it should clump together. You know, if it crumbles when you open your fist, it's too dry. But if water comes out when you squeeze it, it's too wet. It should feel like a damp rag or damp sponge. And so then you can just adjust the amount of time that it gets each day based on kind of the feel of it. Did I do okay, Miranda and Haley?
Yeah, I mean, I think the fist test is awesome. I would say, you know, every soil is different, the porosity, how much water it will hold and or not hold. So we can't say, and then all irrigation systems are different. They might emit a different amount of water over that 20 minutes as, you know, another irrigation system. So we can't say, you know, 15 minutes a day and you'll be dandy. You really have to feel it out. And then obviously it's also dependent on the weather. So right now when the you know, weather is cool and we have a lot of spring rain, you might really only need to water your garden like once a week or twice a week. But as it gets warmer and warmer and you know, sunnier and 90-degree heat, you might have to water your garden twice a day. So you really just have to increase it and be aware of the weather and make adjustments as you go.
I would also
just one point to build on what Miranda said. You know, it's not just about well, it's about the structure of the soil, how much sand or clay or loam is in there. And for those of you who really get into gardening, the first thing you want to do is understand your soil, because it really all comes down to that. You know, we've all heard about, you know, the key nutrients, macronutrients, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, but there's other elements like the biology in the soil and the structure of the soil that affect how plants grow. Biology is a very interesting part that we never hear about. So I just encourage you all to, you know, if you're into the gardening, you know, do a little bit of reading on soil science and it'll pay off.
Thanks, John.
I just want to mention really quickly that I think a really important part of watering your plants is right after you put them in the ground. So when you're putting a bunch of stuff in the ground, you really want to thoroughly water them in, especially if you plant any seeds. And within that first week, you want to make sure that the ground is moist every day. I just wanted to mention that.
Thanks, Haley. I think we have time for a couple more questions. Here's one from Ashley. Feel free to unmute, Ashley. I'd love to learn more about pairing plants. Are there resources you recommend to look at to know what plants to put together?
I'm not entirely sure of specific resources. You can find a lot online, a lot of YouTube videos. There's like a YouTube channel, Everyday Gardener, and he has a lot of really great videos about companion planting. But a lot of them involve herbs and how herbs can pair with plants to attract beneficial pollinators and thus are a companion plant. One we really like are nasturtiums. Nasturtiums are flowers that are really easy to grow, and they're peppery and they're edible. You can throw them in salads and they're delicious. And you can use them as a trap crop to attract aphids away from your brassicas. So if you like to grow broccoli, kale, arugula, radishes, you can plant nasturtiums around, and that will help mitigate pest pressure, and that's a companion plant, and it will help it grow. We also really like to use borage, which is a delicious cucumbery tasting flower. You can plant that alongside your zucchini and your cucumbers, and that's a companion plant that will help that plant grow and attract beneficial insects that will help the health of that plant. And there's so much information on companion planting out there. Like, I implore you to go out and spread your wings in the companion planting world. There's lots of books on it. There's lots of YouTube videos on it. YouTube's a wonderful resource.
Yeah,
one of the most important things. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, your search term is companion planting, Ashley.
Yeah, because you know, we do have a vegetable garden. We moved to our house about 3 years ago. So we didn't have a garden at our old condo. We kind of like had a really tiny little porch. It was in the shade. And where we are here, we have a nice, beautiful garden bed for vegetable planting. And we've been trying, but I realized some of the stuff I'm putting next to each other, I looked online, it said, oh, don't plant this next to that. And then I was like, well, that's why nothing's happening, because they're not getting along with each other. So I would like to learn more about that.
Yeah.
I think one of the most important things with companion planting is just remembering that sometimes in order for that symbiotic effect to take place, they have to be actually blooming. You know, to attract those beneficial insects, the time
Right.
actually needs to be blooming. And, you know, you have to let the basil flower a little bit if you want to. It's better
Right.
for eating quality not to let it flower.
Ah, okay.
If you have lots of different things flowering in your garden at different times, then you're not going to have a problem.
Right. Okay.
So it's good to have diversity.
Thank
And
you.
also there's, you know, always shading issues. Like it's, when you're talking about companion planting, usually people don't reference this, but a lot of it is, you know, you don't want one thing to shade out another.
Right. Right. Thank you.
I will say a really easy companion plant is to plant your scallions or your onions alongside your lettuces, which will help deter slugs away from your lettuces.
Yes, I had slugs last year in my lettuce, and I picked my lettuce. I was chopping, and all of a sudden I see a slug. I was like, I'm not gonna eat that.
No,
No.
that's the worst.
And I've washed it and everything, and this guy just hung on for dear life. So I was like, nope, done with that. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome, Ashley. I have a question from someone here, somebody O'Brien, who can unmute. How many seeds, lettuce, radish, carrot, etc., go into each hole in the soil? Do I need to separate the plants once they've sprouted? That's a great question. Who wants to take that?
I'll take it. And Haley, please interject if you would like to. So again, it depends on what you're growing. Sometimes seeds don't even go into a hole. Carrots actually get surface sown. So you literally just sprinkle them on top of the soil surface, water it in, and that's how they germinate. They do not want to be covered.
Do you push them onto the soil at all?
Nope.
Just sprinkle.
You can press
Sprinkle
them
in water.
into the soil a little bit.
I mean,
you don't want them to be covered. If you water it in gently, then they will make plenty of contact with the soil, and you don't have to spend the time to do that.
And then as far as thinning?
Yeah, so especially if you are direct seeding things like carrots and radishes, you do need to thin them, and everything is different. You know, even radishes, different varieties need to be thinned at different spacings. So your best bet is to look at the seed packet, follow the directions. They will tell you, you know, what the spacing should be.
Does that mean, hi, I'm Jackie, by the way, O'Brien.
Sorry
about that. I don't know how to get my first name on there. Anyway, I bought this little kit, and you put all the little seeds down in these little square modules and put them in a tray. And now I've got wonderful sprouts, but I must have probably 10 carrot sprouts or 10 radish sprouts. And do I need to separate each one of them and put them in the garden?
Well, yeah, I mean, so those are crops that we generally don't transplant. But yeah, I mean, so carrots generally, most carrots you want to have about an inch between them in the row. And then the rows themselves should be at least a foot apart. So, you know, if you have a foot, you're going to have about 12 carrots growing in a row, in that foot of row. As for radishes, if you're talking like regular round red radishes, those are also about an inch apart in the row, but you can space them even wider. I mean, the thing with a lot of root vegetables is the wider you space it, the faster it will fatten up. So the wider you space your carrots and the wider you space your radishes, the faster you'll get them. So if you have planted something and you feel like it's been a long time and they're not fattening up, double check your thinning. You may need to, you know, play God and eliminate some.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Hey, well, I think that's just about it.
Well, I want to thank everyone, Miranda, Haley, Taffy, and John for being on. You guys have been such amazing partners to Wakeman Town Farm. And if any of you want to come and meet any of the team from Homefront. We're having a really nice opportunity at the farm on May 1st. And all the information is going to be up on Wakeman Town Farm's website because we can't remember what time it is. I believe it's in the morning, but they're going to be there for a couple of hours saying hi, showing people the garden structure that they built, and also just answering questions. And it can even, show you live with a garden right there, kind of, to give you a physical, you're talking about moving something over a couple of feet or inches or what have you. Sometimes some of that stuff is much easier in person. But I just want to thank you. This was, 1 hour very well spent. And I believe that everyone who missed it is going to be very happy that you recorded the session. So thank you.
Well, thanks so much for having us. And we're so glad that there's so many, passionate, hungry gardeners out there. So let's get you growing. And please join us on May 1st. And again, the link to the yoga composting session, I never thought I'd say that in a sentence, but the yoga composting session is on the chat, and also the link to the Wakeman Homefront partnership. If you would like to, buy a gift card, that sure would support them, and you'll get
also up on our website too. If you don't want to look through the whole chat to find the link.
All right, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us, and do stay in touch. We're here if you need us.
Have a great night, guys.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.